morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 4 and episode number 515 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Cryo Media Network. Yeah! Today, recording day, is Monday, November 18th, 2024, and happy birthday to my girl, Katharina, the fiercest librarian in all of Canada. I got you. It's a special day. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. This is a take two for us because the original one didn't actually launch on our YouTube page, even though it did launch on our Facebook page. Oddly enough, this seems to be happening to us from time to time, but a little late, fashionably so, but we're with you. Thank you so
Some
much for
weird
waiting.
technical glitch with Restream. It's got nothing to do with computers or it's just a Restream thing. It's a glitch. It just doesn't load it for some reason. So
How many times have they changed the interface in the last 5 months?
like 3 or 4 times.
Jeez.
It's a pain in the ass.
I know.
I understand you're advancing and making the software better, improving it, but when you relocate everything for the end user, it's like, wait, where the hell did this go? Where did the thing go that I used to do with the... Yeah, so every time it's like, what? I'm looking at it. What the hell am I looking at here? So, yeah, anyway, that's, yeah. The joy of being a producer.
Yeah, as normally it's like, what the hell around here now? But when that happens, it's like, where the hell?
Where the hell? Where the hell?
All right. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We've got a fun show for you today. But before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health doing today, sir?
Yeah, it's not great. I've been off. I was sick most of the weekend. I was supposed to go to Super Kyle's party on Saturday night, and sorry, buddy, I didn't make it out. I was not well, and as I understand, he had a great time until he was in the mosh pit and fell and broke his femur.
Yeah, Kyle, I love you, but you don't have to prove you can do absolutely everything. We like you in One Piece.
Yeah.
Oh, we prefer you in One Piece. Anyway. Oh man. Oh, I was going to say what a tough break, and that was a pun not intended.
Oh no.
I'm not that clever to have thought of it beforehand. I hope you feel better in about 40 days, I guess. I don't know. Jeez. Oh.
It's going to take a while, man.
Yeah, that is not a birthday present. Yikes.
No.
All right.
Shall we get to the topic of the day that I did and Mr. How the Lou or the LOL LOL, the leader of the opposition, has muzzled his MPs. And they're saying, he didn't muzzle them, he came out and released the names. That's because we know who they are. But he told them, you can't go and ask a Liberal MP for money because I'm going to cancel that program. It's just absurd. It's freedom, right? Freedom. We're going to make you the freest country in the world only if you do exactly as I tell you. Here's a clip from Power and Politics with David Cochrane, and just have a look at this.
Story about some tensions within the Conservative Party and accusations of muzzling MPs. Christian Noel is a reporter with Radio-Canada, and he joins me now in the studio. Christian, fascinating story. What exactly are you hearing about what's happening inside the Conservative caucus over this?
There's a lot of rumbling. There's a lot of frustration because MPs feel that they're being told that they cannot do their job, which is helping the mayors, helping their communities, accessing funds that they need to build new houses or to build a seniors' home, for example. Here's what happened. When Pierre Poilievre in October announced that he wanted to scrap the GST on the sale of new builds under $1 million, he said, I'm going to pay for that promise by scrapping the Housing Accelerator Fund. Right. That is a fund that the Liberals have in place right now. And it seems to be pretty popular because some Conservative MPs have already written to the housing ministers asking for the share of the pie for their own municipalities and their own ridings. And of course, the Liberals kind of gloated a little bit about that and tried to make fun of Pierre Poilievre, saying, well, if your own MPs are asking for money for their own municipalities, I guess that fund is not as bad as you're saying it is. And that embarrassed Pierre Poilievre, and he didn't like that, and he wanted to go back on top. And to do that, he distributed to the media a letter naming 17 Conservative MPs that had asked for funds for their municipalities. Right. And he said they made a mistake. They didn't know that the Liberals were lying to them, and now they know better, and they're never going to ask again for that fund. And that didn't sit well with some of the MPs because that letter went out and they were named without knowing this was going out. And they feel they are being muzzled for partisanship purposes. And they cannot help their municipalities to get the money they need. And just the fact that this story bubbled up all the way to us, to the media, in a caucus that is usually pretty airtight, it tells you that the rumbling is real and the frustration is real.
Well, I mean...
Well...
Yeah, the call is coming from inside the house.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Number one, the throwing of his MPs under the bus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, all 17 of us were just didn't have the intellectual capacity to figure out that we were being lied to. And then, of course, right, this is something that the big, bad, nasty Liberals did to them. Because they got them to ask for the money under some type of false pretenses. Okay. That doesn't say very much about them. And then he puts words in their mouths. Oh, they all came to me and they told me this and said, oh, no, you've been lied to. It's like, oh, yes, we've been lied to. Now go out and say that. And then the words he puts in their mouth to say is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
But freedom. How many times have I said on the show, freedom to live as Pierre orders or commands you to? Just look at his MPs. These MPs are elected to serve you. They are elected to be your voice to Parliament, to the party leader, to the Prime Minister. Pierre thinks that they are there to be his voice out. His megaphone. They are there to serve him first, not you.
Well, so I've got another clip here I'll show you in a sec. This is from Alan Brown, the mayor of Butternut Valley, New Brunswick. He applied to the Housing Accelerator Fund to build housing infrastructure. Did you hear what I just said there? Housing infrastructure, right? He doesn't think
Right.
he'll be getting any help from his Conservative MP, Rob Moore. I expect that he'll toe the party line because if they're being whipped into it, he has to. He doesn't really have a choice. This is a good clip. I saw this the other day when it was aired live, and I bookmarked it so we could show it today because this happened after the show had closed. And I just listen to what this man has to say. This is the mayor of a small community in New Brunswick, and it's very poignant what he has to say.
Okay.
I just got to find the video. There it is. Hang on. Here we go.
Speak to one of those mayors that you just heard from there. Alan Brown is the mayor of Butternut Valley in New Brunswick, and he joins me now. Mayor Brown, thanks for being here today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
What does your community want from the Housing Accelerator Fund? What projects do you need this money for?
We are applying to the Housing Accelerator Fund to facilitate the development of sewage and municipal water. Our community is vastly rural. It has a few small hotspots of concentration for population. We'd like to see those develop more, and the only way to do that would be to put in municipal water and sewage so that we can increase the density and not incur costs for a larger system spread out over greater areas.
So this will allow you to build the infrastructure that will then allow you to have more houses built in your community. That's the way this works. You see this money as a key first step to getting more houses built in your town?
Yes, it's a first step is to get the infrastructure. There's not much point building houses if they're not going to be able to be serviced. And so part of it would be rezoning or dealing with zoning issues. And once we get the infrastructure in, then we have developers that would build multi-units, which would address rental issues and alleviate some of the pressure for housing in the area.
So your MP is a Conservative. Rob Moore is your Member of Parliament. And according to what my colleague Christian Noel with Radio-Canada is reporting, is that he is being told, along with other MPs, not to support funding applications from the Housing Accelerator Fund. How do you feel about that?
Well, I've said it before that it's irresponsible. But what I do not like is the tacit implication that comes with it, that if we, in the next election, they form government, don't vote in a member of parliament of their party, we're not going to be looked at for any of the programs that they may run. It doesn't matter if that's what they intend, but that's how it comes across. And that is disturbing. All along that the MPs advocate for their constituents.
Right.
And to say we're not going to do that now is irresponsible. Rob Moore has always advocated for us throughout the Liberal tenure. And we know that if given his chance, he would continue to do so. I think it's just partisan policy and partisan politics, and it's municipalities that are going to pay the price for it.
Did MP Moore tell you whether he was going to comply with the orders from his leader? I mean, he's stuck in a tough situation of advocating for you and his constituents, but also towing the line that the party leader has imposed on him. So what did he tell you he's going to do?
He hasn't. I haven't discussed this current blackout on support with him. I expect that he'll toe the party line because if they're being whipped into it, he has to. I mean, he doesn't really have a choice on that. But I would hope that when other things come up, he will continue to advocate, because it was specific that it was just the Housing Accelerator Fund. So I expect that if something else comes along or if there's another issue, he will continue to advocate for us.
Are you worried? Are you worried, though, not having your MP on side could cost you some money here? I mean, I know municipalities can do these deals directly with the government, but MPs advocate for their constituents all the time, and now you won't have that help. Are you worried it could cost you some cash here, sir?
I don't know. That's speculating, but I am worried about the precedent that this sets and how it just drives the divide in politics even further.
I mean, he's basically saying they're going to leave us twisting in the wind.
Yep.
Right? We have nobody to advocate for us because they've muzzled our MP because he asked for money, federal funds for Canadians to help Canadians. But, that's Liberal money. You can't use that. You can't use that program that I intend to kill. Oh my dear God, this man does not want to govern. He wants to dictate. He wants to rule over you.
And clearly he doesn't like it when he's told no, and he too doesn't like it when people laugh at him.
No.
Because this news came out and all of a sudden there's a meeting and it's like, okay, now here's what you guys really meant to say.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, this is what you meant to say, yeah. Did you notice what name's on that list?
Go ahead.
Cooper.
Pardon?
Michael Cooper.
Yes.
A man who rents a house from Pierre Poilievre.
Yes.
Michael Cooper was on that list. The little incel. I don't know that he's an incel. I think he's an incel, but that's just my opinion. I'm allowed to have one. But yeah, he was on that list. So he's actually trying to help his constituents with federal public funds for housing, and he's been muzzled.
Yep. So this is a Kate McKenna here. Now, this is a while ago because this story broke on the 6th. So this is from the 6th. There's been development since there. It says more than a dozen conservatives wrote to the federal government on behalf of communities in their writings calling for them to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund, a program conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has promised to cut. Poilievre's office released the names of the 17 Conservative MPs on Tuesday after Housing Minister Sean Fraser said about a dozen of them wrote to him in recent months. Now, it's really interesting that Pierre is okay with releasing these names.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the guy who doesn't want to go get a security clearance for fear of him being muzzled doesn't actually have a problem with muzzling, isn't it?
Irony, it's thick.
Yes. He doesn't actually object to the principle of muzzling. So that's not his problem, clearly, with not getting a security clearance. Because it's definitely not a point of principle for him. He just blew that shit out of the water. So he essentially takes his 17 MPs and pretty much doxes them.
Yeah, it's effective.
Because Fraser said, right, is about a dozen, didn't name them, or maybe named one or something in QP maybe. Because I think maybe at the time he answered that, if I remember correctly, it was one of the people that had actually wrote him and asked him or something. But I might be wrong on that. But he actually just outright names them. So that's very Trumpian because that's the type of thing that gets the constituents in the riding who are the true believers and don't want you to help Trudeau in any way to start threatening your job. A little bit like they did to Alain Reyes when they sent out that text message. They go, oh my God, how did that message compose itself and magically set itself out to only people in Alain Reyes' electoral district? We have no idea how that happened. So sorry.
Yeah, interesting how that works out.
So he basically doxed them. But hey, if Pierre wants to get the word out, we're happy to let you know which one of those MPs are so that you can see if they follow the line or are actually working from you. So there's Dan Albas, or Dan Albastronaut, or Albas, something else. But I've stopped using that one because from Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola, John Barlow from Foothills, Michael Barrett. Well, Michael. This must be embarrassing for you. From Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes. Kelly Brock from Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek. Frank Caputo, no surprise there, from Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou. Adam Chambers, Simcoe North. Michael Cooper, St. Albert, Edmonton. Oh my God. When Dave Gray said he's originally from St. Albert, Michael Cooper, I hope he's still not in St. Albert because that means Michael Cooper's his MP. Oh, poor guy. No wonder he's a foul-mouthed economist. I'm actually impressed by his restraint now, if that's the case. Brandon Leslie, Portage Lisgar. He made a name for himself from winning that by-election there and being very, very anti-abortion. Let's see what else. Rob Moore, Fundy Royal, who the mayor was just speaking of. John Nader, I'm going to guess, Perth Wellington. Rick Perkins, another usual suspect. South Shore St. Margaret's. Blake Richards, another usual suspect. Bad Airdrie.
Yeah, the
Leanne
gang's
Root,
all here.
another usual suspect. Holy cow. The whole team. Lambton, Kent, Middlesex. Gerald Soroka from Yettlehead. Karen Vecchio. That makes sense that she would, because she's like one of the actual progressive conservatives. And well, they've already taken care of her because she's not running again after removing her from the Status of Women Committee chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where she was respected by everyone.
I know.
But we can't have that because Canada's broken.
No. It has to look broken so I can fix it, except he won't fix a damn thing. He will take away all the things that we have fought for the last dozen years.
Yeah. She's from Elgin, Middlesex, London. Then there's Ryan Williams of Bay and Quinte. Oh, he's the new guy? They just had it. No, that was provincial, the by-election. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. And then John Williamson from New Brunswick Southwest, rounding out the 17. Spokesperson for Fraser said other Conservative MPs requested the funding, including Newfoundland MP Clifford Small, but he did not release the names of any other MPs. Wow. So, kids and cubs, if one of those 17 happened to be your MP, maybe you would like to put some pen to paper.
Let them know what you think of Pierre Poilievre for doing this by restricting the ability to get the funds to your municipality, your constituency, your riding, so that, you can help people and get housing built.
And then let them know what you're going to think of them if they decide to fall in line. Clearly, they know there's a need because they asked. It's amazing how on this one, since we're also talking about freedom and parallels to strategies used down south, I won't call them Trump-like, but in terms of borrowing from the playbook, this is, I remember a certain, unfortunately soon-to-be president again, telling his party, don't vote to fix the border because I need to run on that to win an election. Don't ask for the housing funding money because I need to run on lack of housing to win the next election. The variables are different, but the constants sound eerily similar. Don't they? Won't go as far as calling them Maple Trump, but there's not many original ideas coming from him. It's all been, as the Bare Naked Lady is saying, it's all been done before.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
It's just, keeps telling us that he believes in freedom, that we're going to be free, and that he's going to make us the freest nation on earth. We're already in the top 5, okay? If he's going to make us freer, and I mean logically, the top 5 freest nations on earth have strong social programs. 3 of those nations are Finland, Sweden, and Norway. Denmark. Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Wow. Norway, Sweden, Denmark. Finland is, I think, in number 4. They all have really strong social programs, right? They all have a good social safety net, universal health care, universal pharmacare, universal dental care, universal post-secondary education, and they're the freest countries on earth. So if he's going to make us the freest country on earth, why does he keep telling us he's going to axe all these programs that we currently have, like pharmacare, dental care, child care, and a housing accelerator fund? And we've also seen Sean Fraser announced recently how they are giving debt forgiveness, loan forgiveness for doctors and nurses, which is the stepping stone to state-funded post-secondary education, which is what it should be. If he's going to make us the freest nation on earth, he needs to give us all those things, but he keeps telling us he's going to cut them. So what are we going to be free of? Oh, we're going to be free of healthcare, pharmacare, dental care, child care, and post-secondary education. We'll be free of them in the sense that we no longer can afford them. We will be cut off from them. We will be freed from them. We will not be latched to them. It's all doublespeak with this little guy. And I don't know if you saw this, Mr. Beaver. At the APEC summit, the Prime Minister at the APEC summit was asked about Tulsi Gabbard. I got the video clip for you, and it plays into where we're going, okay? So just watch this.
Nominations are a domestic matter, but they do have implications for Canada. So I want to ask you about one in particular. Tulsi Gabbard, as Director of National Intelligence. This is a person who has a long history of defending Vladimir Putin, of justifying the invasion of Ukraine. Also lots of questions about her personal relationships, travel, financial relationships. Is Canada going to be able to continue to have the intelligence relationship that it has with the United States now, both the bilateral and the Five Eyes relationship, continue to be a consumer of U.S. intelligence and trust what's coming in?
Well, I think these questions you're pointing out are questions that are being asked by an awful lot of people in the United States right now. And they have processes whereby they confirm people, they move forward, they support, they make choices. And I am sure that the American system will continue to demand the right kinds of answers and how they move forward, particularly when it comes to issues of national security. When it comes to keeping Canadians safe, when it comes to keeping Americans safe, our countries can't flinch on that. We have to take these things seriously. And I know Americans take it very seriously, but sometimes political parties do strange things. What comes to mind is the fact that the leader of the official opposition in Canada refuses to get top secret briefings that will allow him to keep his own party and his own members safe. Sometimes political parties make strange choices. And it's the job of citizens to be asking those questions as to why.
Last question.
Shots fired.
Indeed.
I'm sorry that I find that hilarious because he just told the world the leader of the opposition refuses to get his security clearance.
Yep.
Told the world.
Yep.
They make strange choices. Again, this man does not want to govern. He wants to rule over you.
Indeed.
That's all there is to it. He muzzles his own MPs when they ask for federal funds to help Canadians with the Housing Accelerator Fund. We just heard from the mayor of Butternut Valley in New Brunswick who said, now this is upsetting. We were going to use it to build infrastructure so we can develop housing on it. But nope, not allowed to ask for that money because Pierre Poilievre didn't give it to him. The man is a wannabe dictator, and we can't let him assume any other higher position. We just can't.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, do you have the other clip?
I do.
I sent you? Okay. Load it up. We won't start it just yet.
Ready to go.
Okay. Because there's one more bit of news since you spoke of APEC. Not sure.
Grab a coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay. Not sure if a lot of people have heard of it, but it is kind of a BFD. According to Dylan Robertson from Canadian Press, Ottawa has concluded negotiations on a trade deal with Indonesia and is proposing nuclear energy collaboration with Southeast Asian leaders. The moves are a show of faith and multilateralism as the re-election of Donald Trump in the United States is raising fears of further strains in global cooperation on trade and the environment. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto held a bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Lima on Friday. They announced the end of the trade talks that should lead to Canada signing a new deal with the world's fourth most populous country next year. So this is a really big deal. We have the CPTPP, but Indonesia isn't included, isn't one of the 10 other nations included on this one. So this is in addition to that. This is a very big deal. It comes as Trump's impending return to the White House looms large over the discussions of the APEC group, which aims to improve trade among Pacific Rim nations. Trump's first presidency saw him pull back from many multilateral agreements, including the Paris Climate Agreement and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Half of APEC nations are members of the CPTPP. Trump has also promised to slap an across-the-board import tax of at least 10% on all goods coming into the United States, which is causing great concern among America's trading partners and has been a frequent topic of discussion at the Lima summit. Quote, APEC is meeting in the context of rising protectionism, intense geopolitical competition, uncertain economic growth, and the Trump election, said Veena Najibullah, Research Vice President for the Asia Pacific Foundation. She said Trudeau has been pushing to preserve the rules-based trade, quote, that is critical to our prosperity, especially with like-minded countries. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly told reporters in Lima Friday that Trump's return is actually boosting Canada's influence in the world. Quote, if there's a country in the world that understands the United States, it's Canada, she said. That's why there are so many delegations, so many countries coming to see us to ask about how they can adapt. Joly also confirmed she expects Trump to visit Canada next year when the G7 Leaders Summit is held in Kananaskis, Alberta. She said she is still pushing to get things done before Trump takes over. She met Thursday night in Lima with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. The two discussed trying to get a new Columbia River Treaty over the finish line before the current administration exits. The deal that governs how the two manage and share the resources along the Columbia River and Trump's campaign comments about turning to Canada to solve Western U.S. water woes have raised concerns about how he might address that issue. John Curtin, head of the G20 research group, said he expects Trudeau and many leaders to have informal talks on the sidelines of both summits to make sense of how to navigate another Trump presidency. Quote, Trudeau will be in a relatively privileged position because he's been with Donald Trump at several summits and we're the next-door neighbors or frontline state, he said. Najibullah said Trump's re-election likely means reduced role for the U.S. in multilateral institutions and fighting climate change, as well as greater tensions with China over trade, tariffs, and technology. Trudeau and Canada did not have the smoothest relationship with the Trump administration. The first time, though the two did conclude a renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Deal, the Liberal government is depending on the experience of dealing with Trump before to guide its efforts in maintaining a strong relationship now. Canada has also been pursuing efforts to offset China's influence in Asia with a new Indo-Pacific strategy announced in 2022. In announcing the conclusion of trade talks with Trudeau Friday, President Subianto praised Canada for being a partner in everything from sustainable fishing to artificial intelligence. The deal should advance digital trade and renewable energy, he said. Indonesia has a soaring economy buoyed by a population of 280 million, of which young people make up a large portion. The country has been trying to wean itself off high carbon emissions as it copes with threatened biodiversity. Also on Tuesday, Trudeau told corporate leaders that Canada was looking to partner on nuclear energy in Southeast Asia, particularly as countries in the region raise concerns about the large amounts of energy needed to power artificial intelligence. Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy made no direct mention of the nuclear sector when the Liberals released it 2 years ago. But now Trudeau says Canada will use its, quote, trade gateway initiative to not only link businesses but also help broaden local knowledge of nuclear technology, such as how to create a viable market for nuclear goods and adequately trained personnel. Ottawa will also, quote, identify opportunities for Canada's broader nuclear industry to supply products and services to support Canadian and regional objectives, Trudeau's office wrote in a statement. Joly also met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Thursday to discuss Canada and China's cooperation on air transport and combating the fentanyl trade. She said she also discussed with him the Canadian public inquiry on foreign interference and sent, quote, clear messages to China that we will never accept any foreign interference. Canadian officials have been mum on the prospect of Trudeau meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, whether in a formal sit-down or an informal hallway chat, either in Lima at APEC or over the weekend when they both traveled to the G20's Leaders Summit in Brazil. So there you go. We have pretty much, it hasn't like 100 completely signed, but a trade deal with Indonesia to go along with the CETA trade deal, the CPTPP trade deal, and the beginnings. I'm not sure if we've concluded the negotiations with the UK. I think we have. It didn't also make big news if we did, but we were in negotiations with them, unless we still are. I'd have to look that up. But that's a lot of international trade deals signed by this government.
A lot.
And positioning us very well. Another reason maybe not to change course.
You think? Because Pierre Poilievre has said time and time again he will reverse everything the Liberal government has done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and since we're talking about trade deals, Danielle Smith also got in the game saying that we should ditch Mexico. Rob Canoe also sort of suggested it's something we should consider.
Really?
But didn't go so far. Yeah. But again, this is a stupid ploy.
Well,
The
they're
only
a
reason
major
Danielle
trading
Smith is
partner.
doing, sorry?
They're a major trading partner. They're part of the USMCA, the NAFTA, if you will.
Yeah, but their thing is with, there are content rules. So there are certain, when you're making certain products, the content has to be X number percent North American.
Correct.
And it seems that there are some things with China that they're taking certain goods and incorporating them and still calling them North American.
Right.
Something like that. So everybody wants to crack down on that. That's fine. There are ways to do that without kicking Mexico out of the free trade agreement or saying that we want a bilateral agreement. We're Canada. They're the United States. If we negotiate one-on-one, we are in a worse position than if we're negotiating three. And the one reason the United States is so pissed off with NAFTA too, or NAFTA, is that it's the only trade deal onto which they have signed where the dispute resolution mechanism is not populated with a majority of Americans. So the rest of us get illusion of dispute settlement, but the body is always pro-American and majority American in its composition to make sure that it is pro-American. So the Americans are really, the next negotiation is not a negotiation. It's supposed to be just a review, touch up a couple of things, and then it's supposed to be good for the next 16 years. You know, the United States is going to come in and say that this dispute resolution mechanism is a non-starter. It has to be renegotiated, even though it's not up for renegotiation. So with Pierre, the Conservatives, like I said, with these deals, they always asked the federal government to cave on stuff quick so we could get a deal signed quickly so that we wouldn't be without one. Like, just give them everything we want so long as we get a deal. We have to have something.
Like FIPA?
Yep. Sacrifice it all.
Yeah.
We need a deal. And it's just like, that's not a good negotiation. That's not smart negotiating.
No, it's not.
So
give them everything they want just so we can get something in return. Well, wait, hang on, hold on. That's not negotiating. That's capitulation.
Right. So we know why Doug Ford is doing this. I mean, he just gave $100 million to Elon Musk for a certain, I think, 15,000 connections to Starlink. He could have gone to the source and bought 15,000 kits and then double the price to pay for the installation, and he still would have come out on top.
I know. He handed him $100 million. This is bribe money. I don't know what this is. $100 million? It's not even, it's not necessary. It's not needed.
Oh, look favorably upon us, Lord Elon, when it is that you become the head of the Doge. Think kindly upon us the tribute that we have given to you. And then Danielle Smith, well, she wants Keystone again. So that's why she's rolling over and showing her belly.
None of these people have a backbone. How they walk around. They're spineless. I don't know how they continue to function as humans.
Smith and Ford have already sold us.
Oh, yes.
But they're still negotiating price.
Yeah.
We have a deal. Now what are we getting for it?
Oh, I think
dumb negotiations.
Yeah.
You make sure the terms are clear and that the check clears before you hand over the people.
Get paid first. Get paid first.
They're not even clear on the terms.
No.
This is just take the people. Take them. Just don't hurt us, Daddy. They're so weak.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable. And yet here we are.
He's not even in power yet.
They're gonna bend over backwards to please Herr Trump.
So the Prime Minister's probably going to meet with Claudia Sheinbaum, who's the new president of Mexico. There's going to be interesting conversations there. What's up with your damn premiers? What the hell?
Yeah, well, what was it? The president of Brazil?
Yes, that too. That'll be interesting too.
She's, what did she say to Elon? I fornicate oneself.
Yes, yes.
Was exactly what she said.
Yes, we have no interest in doing a deal with you on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So there's some positioning going on here. Now, since we're talking about positioning, got a clip for you. Somebody brought my attention to this. It's maybe about 7 minutes, just under 7 minutes. It's the Prime Minister speaking about immigration. And there is a very clear and marked communications tonal shift on this one. Fisherman's friend, bless you, my Mr. Grizzly. All right. If you have the opportunity, let it rip.
Immigration. Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn. There are two kinds of immigration in Canada. The one you probably think of most is permanent immigration, like when families come to Canada to settle and call it home. Every year, the government determines the right number of permanent residents that we want to admit. That's how it's been done for decades. But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway, temporary immigration. Temporary residents are people who come to Canada for a limited time, like international students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school. When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents, but most return home. So back to this year's plan. Historically, Canada's annual immigration plan just looked at permanent residents. The number of temporary students and workers that we admitted each year was left to the demands of the economy. It was usually a small proportion of our population, so it's never been a part of the long-term immigration plan. But after the pandemic, our economy came roaring back quickly, and we needed a lot of workers fast.
Canada is in the middle of a huge labor shortage.
Temporary foreign workers became such a significant part of our workforce that it'd be a mistake not to include them when we plan our immigration levels. So this year, we did exactly that for the first time. We laid out a plan that sets targets for both permanent and temporary residents. This way, we're getting the full breakdown of people coming into our country so we can prepare the homes and infrastructure needed to support them. Like I said, immigration is based on demand. When we set our targets, we look at every province and territory. We ask the premiers, what are the gaps in your workforce? Is your population growing or getting older? We field calls from businesses, CEOs, economic experts, all sharing their thoughts on where we should set our targets.
We've had a chronic shortage of labor for the last decade. It is the #1 issue of all manufacturers across Canada. So we think there needs to be more, push the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada because
Ontario is facing a generational labor shortage. 380,000 jobs are going unfilled.
It's no surprise that every sector has different wants and needs when it comes to immigration. But after the pandemic, they all came to us with the same message. After 2 years with closed borders, we need more people, more workers, fast. So we brought in more workers, and it was the right choice. It worked. Our economy grew. Restaurants and stores reopened, businesses kept running, but most importantly, in spite of lots of economists' predictions, we avoided the worst-case scenario, a recession. But some saw that as an opportunity to profit, to game the system. We've seen way too many large corporations doing this.
The government says the program has been used to get around hiring Canadian workers in some instances.
Far too many colleges and universities used international students to raise their bottom line.
There are the diploma equivalent of puppy mills that are just churning out diplomas. There is fraud and abuse, and it needs to end.
Because they could charge these students tens of thousands of dollars more for the same degree. And then there are really bad actors who outright exploit people, who target vulnerable immigrants with promises of jobs, diplomas, and easy pathways to citizenship, promises that would never come true. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now.
Immigration is primarily a federal job. We have the levers to rein it in, so we are.
This is a big change. A major cut to immigration, reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%.
A new string of measures to clamp down on temporary immigrants. That means a decrease in international students, temporary foreign workers.
Canada's new immigration plan is straightforward. Lower the number of new immigrants coming into Canada, both temporary and permanent. We're prioritizing permanent residents with the skills we need, like healthcare workers for our hospitals and construction workers who will build more homes. And those temporary residents who are already in Canada, some will apply to stay in Canada as permanent residents. Since they're already here, established and working, the added pressure put on communities is very low. Or they'll leave Canada when their temporary residency expires, reducing our population. Some temporary residents may turn to our asylum system when their visa expires as a shortcut to stay in Canada. Those claims will be analyzed and processed, and if their claim fails, they'll be sent home. Between the amount of people coming and going, we'll effectively pause population growth for the next 2 years. Then from 2027 onwards, it'll balance out and slowly start increasing again at a sustainable pace. In fact, that gets us back to the population growth path we were on before the pandemic. This pause is going to give our economy and our communities the chance to catch up with things like our plan to build millions more homes. That's not stopping, but now we'll have a little more breathing room as we build. We'll see more corporations investing in Canadian workers and youth rather than relying on cheap foreign labor. Our cap on international students is already bringing rental prices down in big cities, and as we keep that cap in place, rents will keep coming down. We're making the system work for Canadians and for newcomers, rather than for the big box stores, chain restaurants, immigration consultants, and sham colleges that exploit it. Immigration is a great thing, and we're lucky that so many people dream of coming to our country. Fulfilling that dream depends on having a good job, a decent place to live, and health care that you can access when you need it. We have to make sure our population isn't getting out ahead of those things.
Okay, that was a brilliant video. Absolutely brilliant. Nailed everything. Pointed the finger of blame where it deserves to be pointed, including at himself. He said we should have acted faster. More people need to see that video to understand what's actually going on. Did you hear a single stupid 3-word slogan in there that made no sense? Exactly.
Government by adults. Grown-ups.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just sharing this video to all my socials because it's that good. Right?
Yeah.
It really is that good.
We
gotta share
admit
it everywhere.
where we made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're fixing
Absolutely.
it. That's a tonal shift.
I appreciate it because it's when your government makes a mistake, it's rare that they actually admit, you know what? We screwed up. He just said, we should have acted faster. We didn't. We know what the problem is. We know where it's been created. We know what we can do about it. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to make things better.
I did like the clip of Doug Ford, though, saying that we really need the people.
Yeah.
Send them all back now and cut ties with Mexico. Amazing how quickly they turn.
They exhaust me, Mr. Grizzly.
Oh yeah, I get it, man. I
They
get it.
just jump from one set of goalposts to another so damn quickly. Speaking of goalposts.
Yeah, how about them Argos? Holy shit.
Wow, eh?
Like, I mean, it was close, it was close, it was close, and then the defense just said, "No, we're gonna destroy you." And you know what? The play in that game was the same play as in the Eastern Final against
Right.
Ottawa just a couple of weeks ago. The defense just intercepted and scored like 3 touchdowns in a row to put it out of reach.
I know.
It was, I always look for a classic nail-biting last
Right.
second field goal. Or a rouge at the very end to decide the
Right.
winner in the Grey Cup, or an overtime game. But this one, Toronto's defense, man, they won the game for them. Now, Nick Arbuckle did a hell of a job too. So
I know.
it was a great game. It was. And look,
Not going to be
I don't
thrown
like
in
to
and
see
handling the pressure.
I never like to see a lopsided victory in a championship game of any type, especially in the Grey Cup, because like I said, the Grey Cup is almost always a down to the wire nail biter. But Toronto's defense, man, the way they destroyed Ottawa in the East Final by winning by 20 points. Was the final 16 or 17 point difference, I think was the final?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But this was like, I'm like you, I like a closer game. And it was, we had a classic
and it
Grey
was
Cup game until we got to the half.
Fourth
It was
quarter.
tied at 10 at one point. It was leading by 1 at the half.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a nice, close, classic Grey Cup game until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't. Now, that being said, Zach Collaros had sliced his hand open, so they stitched it up and put a glove on. So his throwing hand has a glove on it, so that is going to put him off. And he threw a few interceptions as a direct result of that. But you know what? It's still the game. He decided to keep playing.
And Arbuckle had a little dip at one point there, where
right,
3 or 4 passes in a row, just like, what happened to your arm, dude? You've been nailing everything.
It was a good game. It was entertaining. Sorry, Cassie.
Yeah, sorry, Cassie. But those interceptions, holy! There was one by Priester. I think he ran for 61 yards, and it's the second longest run in Grey Cup history.
In Grey Cup history, yeah. The longest is 65 yards, and that was in like 1940 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, it was a hell of a game. And there was 2 interceptions like that though, where Arbuckle threw to Winnipeg, intercepted and blew it, turned it around. Same deep pass, same thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean, Winnipeg made 2 interceptions and got field goals from them.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a hell of a game. It was entertaining, and that's what you want. You can't ask for much more than that. Again, and here's the thing: the scoreboard does not dictate how close the game actually was.
No.
Those were defensive touchdowns, defensive interceptions, and touchdowns. That changed the course of the game right there.
Yeah, and then they had this the kicker, Liram. I'm gonna mispronounce his name. Harulahu.
I can't get it right either. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I hear
but
it.
He was.
I can hear it. Okay, no problem. And when I read it, no, the mind disconnects from what I heard to what I read.
Yep. With 5 minutes left, he was 4 for 4 in field goals.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just, and I think he got injured a little bit too. There was like some play where everybody went flying, and they landed into his leg or something. So he was like limping and stuff. But I think he made every field goal and every conversion.
Oh yeah.
Damn. I mean, he alone counted for 15, 16, 17 of the points. At one point, I think when it was like 10 or something, it's like all the 10 points were his.
That's right.
3 field goal kicks and a rouge.
No, correct. Yeah.
So, well, maybe is the field goal kicker the same person that kicks off?
No, not on every case. And in this case, no, you had a
so
place
you may not have
kicker
gotten
and
the
your
rouge.
punter, 2 different. Yeah. In some teams, the place kicker will also be the punter, but that wasn't the case here.
Yeah. So a great match. Argos won at 41-24. It's the 8th consecutive Grey Cup win in 8 in the last 8 starts for the Argos.
Mhm.
It's the 8th consecutive Grey Cup win for the Argos against the Bombers in a
The
final.
Bombers.
Yep. And the last time the Argos lost a Grey Cup final, if they were in it, was in BC itself back in 1987. For the Bombers, it was their 5th straight Grey Cup appearance. They won the first 2 against Hamilton, but
And then lost against Toronto, and then Montreal and Toronto.
Yeah.
They will all, in all likelihood, make it back to the Grey Cup next year, which would tie Edmonton's 6 appearances in a row.
Wow.
And Edmonton won it 5 times and then lost it on the 6th. So, that's look, they're a dynasty team. Even if they didn't win last night, getting to the Grey Cup 5 years in a row, it's not an easy road. I mean, Ottawa didn't play for the Grey Cup, and yes, there was a few years where we didn't have a team, but Ottawa didn't play for the Grey Cup for 38 years at one point. 76 to 2015. 76 they won it. 1981. 1981 to 2015 was the gap between Grey Cup appearances. I think at one point the Saskatchewan Roughriders went something like 30 years between appearances. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on that. If I've offended anybody, I'm terribly sorry. But even though it's a 9-team league, it's not easy to get to the championship, and it's not easy to win. So, yeah, it was exciting. It was great. I thought it was a good wrap up to the season, and Ottawa will be back bigger and better next year, and hopefully we can make the Grey Cup next season.
I would like that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I'm looking for something here, Mr. Bisley, so if you could keep chatting for a little bit.
Yeah, I've got a little clip here about the Ontario Place Therm. What is it? The Ontario Place Therm Lease Schedule D Appendix 2 referencing permit to take water in Ontario Resources Act. It's kind of dry, but I think the video is important. I'll show this to you right now. There we are. Here we go. Watch this.
Ontario Place Thermal Lease, Schedule G, Appendix 2, page G16. This schedule spells out whose responsibilities it is for permits, licenses, approvals, and agreements. And on page G16, it has a permit to take water, Section 34, Ontario Water Resources Act. And that is under, that is going to be the landlord and the tenant, both. So if you take a look at who needs a permit to take water, Section 34 says, by law, you must have a permit if you plan to take 50,000 liters of water in a day from the environment. This includes from a lake, a stream, a river, a pond, groundwater. So this Appendix 2, this Section G is pretty important.
Ontario Water Resources Act. And basically their lease lets them do whatever they want, according to this.
Jeez.
Yeah. So they're just bypassing, we'll just ignore that. Because Doug, no, don't worry about it. It's environment crap. Don't worry about it. So, one more reason or one more way that Doug is going to harm us. You must have a permit if you plan to take 50,000 of liters of water a day from the environment. This includes a lake, a stream, a river, a pond, groundwater. Yeah, so, somebody says here we already have companies like Nestle stealing our natural resources for a song, except they're getting out of the business. They're leaving the province. They're not going to be doing it anymore. That's a recent announcement.
5 days ago in the Narwhal.
Blue Triton Brands. Primo Water Corp merged with Blue Triton Brands to create Primo Brands Corp, a leading branded beverage company in North America with a focus on healthy hydration. Primo Brands employs more than 11,000 associates with dual headquarters in Tampa, Florida and Stamford, Connecticut, and has more than 50 production facilities with more than 200 depots for efficient delivery to customers and consumers across North America. So Nestle's been replaced by another water company, but they're still going to be taking spring water.
Yeah, according here to the Narwhal here, it says Blue Triton, a water bottling company formerly known as Nestle Waters North America, is ending its operations in Ontario. Since 2007, the U.S.-based company has operated a facility in Guelph, Ontario, and 2 wells in the town of Erin and Wellington County, where it collects groundwater to bottle and sell.
In 2017, the former Ontario Liberal government imposed a moratorium on new permits to take water for bottling in order to study its impacts on the environment and quantity of water available for other users. The province allowed Nestle to continue extracting up to 4.7 billion liters of water a day from the two wells over a week that would fill 13 Olympic swimming pools. In 2021, Nestle sold its North American water divisions to venture capitalists that renamed the business Blue Triton. A day after the name change was announced, the Doug Ford government lifted a moratorium on new permits for water extraction, because of course he did, for bottling, saying the province's studies concluded water taking did not adversely impact the environment or other users. I'm going to call bullshit on that. Right now in the United States, the only state out of the 50 of them that is not experiencing some level of drought somewhere in the state right now is Alaska.
Yeah,
You got that
that's
big
pretty
Jennings
frightening.
fire going on in New York.
Yeah, that's right.
So don't come and tell us that taking water has no problem when there's so much drought going on all over the place. That's a damn lie. Let's see what else it says here. In lifting the moratorium, it introduced new regulations, including a need for municipalities to approve new permits to take more than 379,000 liters of water per day. This did not, however, apply to Blue Triton, as a few months later, in November 2021, the province granted Blue Triton a 5-year renewal on Nestle's permits. That is just...
Yeah, I know. And more exasperation.
It's just...
Oh, just before Vim's got to head out, but she did send me a message the other day, and I wanted to relay this. She says, "Hi, Mr. Grizzly. I'm having a proud daughter moment. If you have time, would you mind mentioning this? My dad is 84 and still practices full-time, including at the after-hours clinic." So, way to go, Vim's dad. 84 years old and still putting the time in as a physician. Well done, sir. Thank you.
Wow.
Salute you.
And Kit Saucy just sent us an article from the Halifax Examiner by Joan Baxter saying that there's a similar thing going on in Nova Scotia. It's part one of a series, I guess, here. But this was from January. She says, Nova Scotia has practically given away some of the purest water in Canada. Each year, Sobeys and Aquaterra pump hundreds of millions of liters of water from wells in Colchester County and bottle and sell it in grocery stores for potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. For that water, the province charges the two companies a total of $700.69.
Yeah.
It's water.
Yeah, I know.
We buy it at $2, $3, $4, $5 a bottle, depending on the size of it. They pay $769. And then they pat themselves on the back and they say they're good stewards of the economy.
It's the most valuable resource on Earth, remember that. Without water, we die, number one. Number two, it is one of the most expensive resources on Earth. When it used to be free, you'll go to the gas station and look up and go, $1.50 a liter, that's disgusting, I can't believe that. And then put 80 liters in your tank and scream and rant and rave and pay $3 for 500 milliliters of water and not see the comparison. I get it, you're not buying 80 liters of water at a time, but you fail to see the comparison. As a commodity, petrol that you put in your car, gasoline, is one of the cheaper commodities available. Do I like it? No, it should be even cheaper. Oh, actually, why don't we just move to electric? Watched a special on BYD out of China yesterday, and they have a car that they're going to be able to retail for in North America for $15,000. 350 kilometers range on the battery. Their top-of-the-line vehicle on a solid-state battery, 2,000 kilometers per charge.
Jeez.
2,000. 1,000 kilometers is about 10 hours of driving nonstop.
Right.
Most of us don't drive 10 hours nonstop. We'll take a break. We'll maybe stop overnight or something. So, you could drive to New Brunswick and back. From Ottawa to Miramichi and back on a single charge with that vehicle.
Jeez.
So The technology is not readily available yet, but it will be soon. BYD is a battery company to begin with, and then they got into the electric car business when they saw there was an opportunity. So, yeah. Now, BYD cars are not available in Canada yet. They are available in Mexico and throughout Europe. They will be bringing them to Canada at some point, but when, I don't know. The concern, of course, being if they sell it for such a cheap price, is it going to kill the Canadian car industry? Well, what is happening is BYD is manufacturing vehicles in Mexico now.
Yeah.
And they want to build a plant in Canada. So the reason, this is how they get around some of the tariffs.
Right.
Because if they build in Canada and they build in Mexico, they can sell to the United States because it's all part of the Auto Pact.
Right.
It's kind of
Exactly.
interesting the way that it's not a loophole, it's a legality.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if they're building in Mexico and creating the jobs there.
And somebody asked me, would you buy the car? And I go, if I could get an electric car for $15,000, yeah, I would. And I wouldn't feel guilty about it. You know why? Because I can't afford a Tesla Model 3 for $58,000.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that kind of money.
Right. Yeah. Since we're talking about Pierre and his MPs and some freedom, there's another thing that popped up in the Hill Times that you may have not heard of, Mr. Grizzly, but maybe another reason why some members of his caucus might start hating him a little more.
Oh, what happened now?
Yes, this is by Peter Mazaru at the Hill Times. Quote, Conservative MPs bailed on France visit early, won't say why. New Democrat Don Davies says the Tories wasted taxpayer dollars by crossing the Atlantic twice for a conference in which they did not fully participate. 3 Conservative members of Parliament abandoned a trip to Strasbourg, France in late June, midway through the planned itinerary, leaving their fellow MPs and returning to Canada on hastily arranged flights home, say 2 other members of the delegation. The 3, Leanne Rood, second time we mentioned her today, Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, Larry Brock, another one of the usual suspects, total winner, this one, Brantford, Brant, Ontario, and Jamie Schmalley, Haliburton, Kawathra Lakes, Brock, Ontario, have declined to explain their reasons for abandoning the trip early. They serve you. They were there on your dime, allegedly doing something in your name, in your best interests, allegedly, but they won't tell you why they left. You're not allowed to know. Even though everybody else stayed, which is weird, but you're not allowed to know, which is weird. On we go. But Brock implied the party's whip, MP Carrie Lynn Findlay, another usual suspect, was involved in the decision. Liberal MP Francesco Sobera from Vaughan Woodbridge and NDP MP Don Davies, Vancouver Kingsway, who were also part of the delegation, said that the 3 Conservative MPs didn't fully participate in the summit they had flown overseas to attend. Davies accused them of wasting public money. Conservative MPs have been voting down requests to fund parliamentary travel, the Hill Times reported late last year. Quote, yes, the Conservative MPs did fly to Europe, did arrive, and then were recalled back by their leadership team to come back home to Canada, Sobera said in an interview. Sobera is the president of the Canada European Union Parliamentary Association, which arranged the trip to Strasbourg. Quote, so we had to ask our secretary to make those changes, incur those costs, send them home. They did not participate in any of the debates. All the work was done for them, for us to participate in numerous debates. They did not participate. They stayed maybe 2 or 3 days, and then all of them left. The NDP's Davis said that the 3 Conservative MPs, quote, basically wasted taxpayer dollars and maybe even increased the expense by changing travel arrangements on short notice. Quote, they were not there for the whole time. They did not fully participate, he said. Talk to my whip. The Hill Times reached out to the offices of all 3 Conservative MPs for the comment. None replied. When asked to comment on his way to a committee meeting, Brock said, quote, you can talk to my whip from my side of the story, and walked away. Aren't you aware of your side of the story? Or have they told you what your side of the story is?
I think he's waiting to get dictated what his side of the story is.
Conservative Whip Findlay did not respond to several requests for comment sent to her office. Conservative MP Carrie Lynn Findlay, the Hill Times there's a photo caption right in the middle of the article.
Oh, that's great.
A Conservative Party press secretary contacted the Hill Times to refute the suggestion that the attending Conservative MPs did not participate in the scheduled events. The press secretary provided a photo showing the MPs posing for a group photo and 2 others that appeared to show them speaking in the Council of Europe chamber. He did not comment on questions about why the MPs returned to Canada early. Great way to hear what's going on in Europe. MPs Ruud, Brock, and Schmale were part of a group of 10 MPs and senators who visited the French city in June. The trip was organized by the Canada-EU Parliamentary Association, one of several groups that allows parliamentarians to travel abroad and network with lawmakers and other influential people in other countries. The House of Commons foots the bill for those trips. Besides Davies Sorbera and the 3 Conservative MPs, the group also included Liberal MP Jennifer O'Connell, Bloc MP Stéphane Bergeron, Conservative Senator David Wells, Progressive Senator Brian Francis, Independent Senator Gwen Boniface, and 3 staff members who work for Parliament. The Hill Times attempted to contact all of the participating parliamentarians for comment. The group was there to represent Canada at a meeting of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, or PACA, an international organization founded in 1949 to promote peace in Europe. Canada has observer status at the Council, which meets 4 times per year. At least a handful of Canadian parliamentarians typically attend, said Davies. Quote, "It's a really great way to hear what's going on in Europe," said Davies. "International relations, trade, and environmental policies of concern to Canada are often discussed at these summits," he said. NDP MP Don Davies, the Hilltop... Nope, another photo caption right in the middle. This is really weird. The trip ran from June 24th to 28th, coinciding with the duration of the PACE Summit. Participating parliamentarians met twice daily for the first 4 days and once on the final day for a total of 9 sittings. Attendance records show that Brock attended 2 of the 9 sittings. Ruud and Schmale each attended 3. O'Connell and Bergeron attended 5. The remaining MPs and senators attended between 6 and 8 of the 9 sittings. Those records show that Ruud and Schmale attended sittings in the first 2 days of the delegation's 5-day trip. Brock attended sittings on day 2 and 3. None of the Conservative MPs were marked as present at sittings on days 4 and 5. Wells, who was also a member of the Conservative caucus, participated in sittings throughout the duration of the trip. MPs and senators on the trip also participated in events and meetings outside of the PACA sittings, including bilateral meetings with parliamentarians from other countries, said Davies. He said the Conservative MPs did not attend all of the bilateral meetings. MPs Ruud and Schmale incurred combined costs for transportation, accommodation, and per diems, funding to cover meals and other minor costs associated with travel, of $5,514.24 and $5,380.07, respectively, according to a report released by the Parliamentary Association in early October. The other MPs and senators on the trip incurred individual costs ranging from $4,076.52 to $5,468.58. Brock incurred costs of $4,342.25. He claimed $538.11 in per diems. Bergeron claimed $829.46 in per diem costs, and the remainder of the participating MPs and senators, including Ruud and Schmale, each claimed per diems of more than $1,100 total. Now,
wow.
I don't know why these 3 were allowed to go and then had to be called back, but it could be something just as petty as you traveled with liberals.
Probably.
Why are you being seen there with them?
Yeah.
You get your butts back home.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
But all that work that was done by this other organization for them to be able to participate was spat upon. It came with costs. The reputation of our nation has gone down in the eyes of that organization. And none of us are allowed to know why. What was so urgent that they had to come back?
We don't know. They won't tell us because, freedom. Wait. Isn't that the opposite of freedom?
I would say so.
I'm just, we would like to know why you recalled your members. Like, what was the reasoning? We'd like to know because we paid for it. So could you please tell us why that is? We paid for it. I'd like to have some value for my money, please. Why? Why, Pierre? Why? Why, Pierre? Why? Why? Why, Pierre? Why? Combien? Why? 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 Do I sound like a pigeon or a seagull?
Oh my God.
Why? Why? Why?
Why? Boing. Boing. All right. We're going to finish off with a little Nova Scotia debate because I promised it to you.
Okay.
I watched it. And okay, it was good debate.
Okay.
Overall, informative. Yeah. The three candidates were extremely polished.
Okay.
Oddly enough, Tim Houston was the least polished of the three. Not that it's going to hurt him, because he hit all the greatest hits.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people that will vote for him will eat it up. And not like to say like he got his butt handed to him or he lost. He was just, of the three, he was the least effective speaker. That's pretty much about it. But that's because this level of the other two was so high.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How would I put it? It really lacked any type of excitement at all. So, I mean, if you're listening to debate just to get some information, see people back and forth, and you like it to be plain and simple and, not too many fireworks, not too much drama, and not too many people, stunting and stuff. I mean, I guess this was the kind of debate for you, but there wasn't as much, how would I put it? There was some calling out. And it was like really well done, substantively. But when sometimes you watch a debate, someone's gonna call someone out, and you go, "Oh, snap!"
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. So you had to be listening, and it's like, "Oh, yes, that's a very good point." It was very cerebral, almost that way. Cost of living, housing, and healthcare are the biggest issues, and the debate went about 90 minutes. And they touched on 5 sections: affordability, climate action, raising a family, the province's growth, and housing. On Houston's sort of overall vibe is there's been a lot of criticism, but the government has made significant investments that are producing results. We haven't been perfect, but we've done a lot of good work. The province is on the right path. Stick with us. And the whole debate was pretty much like that for him. He talked a lot about stuff that he has done, but he didn't seem to have any plans whatsoever on anything for the future. It was just kind of weird. Zach Churchill, who's the leader of the Liberals, basically stating that Houston was running on the same promises, same broken promises from last time. His act hasn't changed much, basically. And that the election was called because Mr. Houston wants more power for himself with less accountability, because he called this as a snap election. He talks a lot about his $3,000 in tax cuts that he has planned. He's planned to build 80,000 new homes to get back to fundamentals on healthcare, and makes the point frequently that Houston has been trying to double the population of the province. That was a goal, it seems, when it was already bursting at the seams. And the vacancy rate is 0, and we have to address the demand side on housing. Claudia Chender, who is the leader of the NDP, is basically running on the fact that rents are up 70% in Nova Scotia since Tim Houston took power, and that there are 145,000 Nova Scotians that are still waiting to be attached to primary care. She's talking about building homes that people can actually afford, attaching people to primary care, and removing the HST from everyday items like groceries, cell phone bills, and internet bills. She says specifically that there's a need for non-market housing, and they can't wait for the condos that Houston wants to build to magically just go down in price. So, and makes the point on housing that the number of housing units built doesn't matter if people can't afford to live in them. Now, some of the facts on housing for Nova Scotia is that according to Statistics Canada, greater than 30% of Nova Scotians are renters. Rents have risen 18% since last year. Nova Scotia is consistently among the highest rate of rent inflation in the country of late. And they had something called fixed-term leases that have popped up, and landlords are using that to get around the caps. This lease is for a fixed term. Okay, your term's up. You got to go. we're going to renovate or something, right? According to the Deputy Minister of Housing, greater than 7,000 Nova Scotians are on a waiting list for more affordable housing. In fewer than 10 years, an additional 135,000 residents have come to Nova Scotia. So that's why housing has become a big issue. Houston pretty much had nothing else to say that I believe that the solution to the housing crisis is more housing. Well, duh. And what?
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, really. He talks about something called the MOST program, More Opportunities for Skilled Traders, which seems to be a pretty interesting program that other provinces might want to pick up on. It's offered to anyone who's working in a skilled trade who's under the age of 30 years old. They're not charged income tax on the first $50,000 they make. That's a good way to get people to go into the trades. He claims that housing starts are up. They just need to stick with the plan, but he does not acknowledge at all that his rent cap is not working because of the fixed term leases. And like I said, he just believes that we need more housing. That's the solution, but he doesn't have anything new. Chender does mention that she will immediately close the loophole on the fixed term lease and put on a rent to own starter program, which I think there's a federal one to go along with that, so it probably dovetails with that. And Zach Churchill said that he too would close the fixed term lease loophole, but he would create a rent bank from which I'm not sure residents can borrow or they just get a donation that can help them make rent at the end of the month if they can't do so. And basically says that the government has not created a path to home ownership. He says that if he takes government, he would immediately implement rent control, lower the allowable rent increase per year, and close the fixed term lease loophole. No, sorry, that's Claudia Chender. Sorry. He says that Chender's plan to build 500 new prefabs is a good start, but that's a week's worth of Mr. Houston's population growth plan, so it won't do much. And basically criticize Houston for having put out a pamphlet as a platform, and there's nothing in it on housing. When it comes to cost of living, the only thing Tim Houston had to say is that they brought in a school food program, but he doesn't seem to have anything planned for the next 4 years. Chender from the NDP says that she's going to push for a path to a living wage. She's going to institute an affordable home tax credit of about $900 a year and cut the HST off all essentials. She says Tim's plan would take a penny off every dollar, and Zach's too. We're going to take all of the tax off the things you can't live without: groceries, cell phones, and internet bills. And if you want to transition to a heat pump, off of that and the installation too. Zach Churchill basically says that his NDP rival is happy with the highest taxes in the country, and that Mr. Houston's happy with the second highest taxes in the country, or vice versa for one of them. So then again, talks about his $3,000 tax reduction, getting rid of the HST on groceries, bringing more competition to the grocery market, and investing in public transit. He wants to make it free, and doubling something called the Seniors Care Grant. Now, the first clip I'd like to show is the one about education. It's timestamp 2520. And it's only about 3 minutes or so. But this very much represents Tim Houston over the course of the night, talking about things already done and trying very hard to make not much look big.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to send me the link.
Oh.
I don't have it.
Why? It didn't go to you?
Hang on. Let me see. Oh, well, there it is. I got it now.
Oh, sorry.
Just a sec. Took it.
All right. So, yeah.
Where do you want to start
2520.
Because it's 90 minutes.
Yeah, 2520.
2520.
All right.
Also on affordability measures, Claudia Chender is talking about establishing a low-income energy rate. And Zach Churchill talks about increasing the heating assistance rebate program to also qualify under the current program and to reduce dependence on coal, as Nova Scotia is burning the same amount of coal today as it was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Thanks so much. You can't talk about education without talking about supporting educators and supporting families and supporting students. My kids went to public school in this province, and they had a fantastic experience, wonderful teachers. We have smart students. We have great teachers. But what we need is a government that supports them. And that's what our government has done. In fact, when the teachers union was in negotiations with the province, I was home in Pictou County, and I got a call one night and when the negotiations were happening, and I said, how'd it go? And they said, not too good. So I said, listen, go across the hall and tell those NSTU folks that I'm going to drive up to the city and I'm going to come and chat with them. I got in my car. I drove up to the city. We met, I think, 9:30 that night for a few hours, and we got a deal done that supports teachers, supports students, and makes money available. Now, investing in education is something new for the teachers. That's why they're so pleased right now, because under the Liberal government, in fact, Mr. Churchill was the Minister of Education when teachers went on strike, when they weren't supported. And under the NDP government, in fact, teachers marched in the streets against the NDP government. You know why? Because they cut funding to education. We are not cutting funding to education. We are investing in education, and we will continue to do that. We're announced we're building new schools, but you know when the best time to build a new school was? To start it 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We're here, we're building them, we're supporting education and supporting those that are educating our kids.
And the schools that Mr. Houston has cut the ribbons on were started 5-7 years ago when I was Minister of Education. Also, the pre-primary program that was bought in. I'm sorry, I can't stand by while two leaders say that education funding was cut. It wasn't. Every 4-year-old in the province now has access to a free universal pre-primary program. Imagine the impact on families like my own, who have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old who got through that system. We now have also a big issue with childcare spaces. Hundreds of people, hundreds of families waiting to get childcare. That's impacting parents' ability to get back to work. It's impacting cost of living for our families. And right now in Nova Scotia, we are not allowing the private childcare centers, who are small business owners, mostly women operated, allowing them to expand their spaces at a time when the market needs more childcare spaces. That's another thing that we have to deal with, so that families have access, not just to pre-primary, but from 0 to 3 have access to more childcare in Nova Scotia.
Now the Nova Scotia
on the childcare spaces, we've opened up 4,000 childcare spaces. We know there's a big need. We also know that there is an issue with the agreement with the federal government, and that's because the Liberals signed that agreement on the eve of an election so they could have something to campaign on. It's very restrictive. Almost every other province took their time and negotiated a proper deal with the federal government and got a much better deal than Nova Scotia. But I will say, the first thing we did when we came into government is we sat down and we listened to teachers. We started something called Ideas for Education. And out of that was born the idea that we have to get cell phones out of the classroom. And when I talked to teachers, a teacher told me that he did a lesson and he couldn't believe how engaged the students were. He was at the end of the lesson already, and he's like, usually they drop off, but then he realized it's because they weren't on their phones, they were paying attention. So there's a lot we can do to support teachers and educators.
Well, talking about being in the classroom, the Nova Scotia Teachers Union has been raising the alarm about violence in schools.
So, when there was a labor thing, he got in his car, he went in over, made it happen. And look how much kids are learning now that we've removed cell phones from the classroom. But there was not a word in that about what he's got planned for the next 4 years.
No.
Not a word. Oh, this other guy signed the daycare deal too quickly. And, you know, we should have built those schools a long time ago. We should have got on them. It's like, yeah, dude, all the ribbons you've been cutting, those are the schools I approved when I was education. 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah. So he kept on getting owned like that. But you see, they're not slams, right? It's not like, oh, like Zach Churchill is presenting himself in a very
premierish way. But I mean, he could have but he could have landed that one, right? Rather than, I'm sorry, I'm not just going to let you say. I mean, it was just way too damn polite. Now, the next clip I have for you at 32:44 to 36:56, we're talking about climate change here, and watch Tim Houston make a big pivot because he's got nothing. Watch him make the expected, boring, oh, are you serious pivot? And then at the end of the clip, watch the little bit of panic.
Okay.
Overseas to Germany, potentially. If we want to get off coal, if we want to have more renewable energy here, bring down emissions, bring down power rates, wind energy does need to be applied to our grid, to your power bills, to drive that price down.
And Mr. Houston, you want to put a cap in place. The last time you made legislative changes to power regulation, it had a negative effect on NSP's credit rating, which makes it more costly for the company to run. How do you cap rates and prevent it from affecting the credit rating and ultimately ratepayers?
There's lots of high-paid, smart folks at Nova Scotia Power and Emera, and they should manage their business. My only interest is in the ratepayers of this province, and we will take every action we possibly can to protect them. But I have to say how insincere it is of Ms. Gender and Mr. Churchill and the NDP and the Liberals to talk about anything around the cost of utility and fuel without talking about the carbon tax, which makes everything in this province more expensive. I am the only one who will stand up against the carbon tax. And I know the Liberals want a carbon tax under a different name. It's still a carbon tax. It impacts the price of everything. The best thing we can do to support Nova Scotians with affordability and with just getting by in everyday life is stand up to the carbon tax. And fortunately, for the greening of the grid and getting more renewables on so we have more rate stability in the long term, we actually put a wonderful plan forward to the federal government. It was called Better Than a Carbon Tax. And do you know what the NDP did? They fought against it. And do you know what the Liberals did? They fought against it. Well, they are the voices of inaction. We are the voices of action. We are the only party that can make it happen in this province.
Let's talk about
we don't need a carbon tax in this province. We will stand up against it at every single opportunity because you deserve it.
It's somewhat ironic that you are saying that you are the voice of action, Tim, when all you do is blame Ottawa for the challenges that people are facing today in Nova Scotia. An NDP government would waive the motive fuel tax. That's a gas tax. That's the tax that makes it hard for people to get from A to B. You have complained about it for 3.5 years and blamed Ottawa. We would actually do it. You have talked about how the cost of living is high and it's Ottawa's fault, and yet you have taken zero action on taxes in your 3.5 years in government. Why should people believe that you're going to do it now?
Well, Mr. Churchill, you wanted to get in on this?
Mr. Houston has had signs on his political signs for 2 years saying vote against the carbon tax. Guess what? The carbon tax is still here. If you re-elect him, it'll be back again. The only party, if you look at our platforms, that has a solution to this issue is ours. We will end the carbon tax by bringing in a cap-and-trade system that will do our part to reduce emissions, give money back to you so you can pay for your heat pumps, get rebates for your electric vehicles, and it will also take 10 to 15 cents off the pump. Mr. Houston is charging HST on top of the carbon tax. If he cared about it that much, we would actually see an alternative like we have in Quebec and other jurisdictions where we do our part for the environment, give rebates to people, but also take the price off the pumps for consumers. Mr. Houston would rather kick and scream and whine than actually do his job and negotiate a better deal for you.
Mr. Houston, if you want to jump in here quickly before we move on. Thank you. Listen, I'm the only leader on this stage that is only looking out for the interests of Nova Scotians and not beholden to a political party. The NDP are beholden to Jagmeet Singh in Ottawa. The Liberals are beholden to Justin Trudeau in Ottawa. I am only beholden to Nova Scotians. And the carbon tax adds 24 cents a litre to the price of gas. The fuel tax that's there, it's used for roads and bridges, and we need investments in roads and bridges. And perhaps other parties aren't interested in investing in roads because they want to get cars outlawed in this province, but we know that we need to invest in roads and infrastructure and bridges. And the
Got it.
best way to
Got it.
support Nova Scotians is get rid of the useless carbon tax that just siphons money out of the hands of Nova Scotians, puts it in Ottawa, doesn't protect the planet. We had a plan to do that and takes it away from things that we could use here in Nova Scotia.
You found $45 million for Google because they knocked on your door and asked. I'm sure you could reallocate the budget so that we could pay for roads and give Nova Scotians a break. Instead, he wants to fight with Ottawa and not deliver the promises until they come wrapped up in a campaign package. I don't think that you have credibility on this issue.
All right, we have to move on to healthcare at this point.
Wow.
Boom. Okay.
Wow.
So first you noticed the pivot, right?
Yeah.
I can't believe this thing, but I can't believe how insincere, because you're not talking about the carbon tax. You are beholden to Jagmeet Singh. You are beholden to Justin Trudeau. I'm only beholden to Nova Scotians, but listen to me say all the words that Pierre Poilievre has been saying. But I'm not beholden to him.
No, not at all.
And they want to outlaw your cars. That's his version of they're eating the dogs and eating the cats.
Well, apparently, did you see the thing from Poilievre the other day about how we're going to eat crickets?
Yes. It's for animal food.
It's for animals. Ugh. How do they get to lie like this every damn day and continue to get away with it and never be held responsible? I don't understand it.
Yep. And the reason for his pivot is because the moderator happened to mention when you made changes to power regulation, it adversely affected Nova Scotia Power's credit rating, thus making it more costly for the company to run.
Yes.
One sentence who drove by that was, I can't believe the carbon tax. Ah. And then at the end, but they want to outlaw your cars. Full panic. Has nothing. 3 subjects: housing, affordability. 4 subjects: education. And now carbon stuff. Climate change. He's got nothing. Not one new program or plan mentioned. And now we're at like minute 37 of the debate.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. They go through healthcare. You think it would have been a bigger subject because Houston campaigned on fixing healthcare.
And he's done
This is a big thing that got in. And it didn't. There were like no fireworks there at all. I mean, it was an interesting section to listen to, but there were no fireworks whatsoever. So we'll skip over to the next one, which was they started talking about population growth. And this one came around a lot because I'm guessing, as Zach Churchill says, Tim Houston at one point came out and said, we're going to double the population of this province. And it was a big thing that he was proud and, hung his hat on.
What's the
Didn't go as
timestamp?
planned.
What's the timestamp?
52:23. And in this one, when Claudia Chender says, and I want to say one more thing, look at Houston's face.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Zach Churchill comes in and basically calls Houston a liar, look at his body language, the little bits of time that the camera is on him. And look when his head pops up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We are moving on to the growth section of our debate tonight. Communities across Nova Scotia are seeing rapid growth, and we're seeing the pressures that come with that increase in population. How would your government strike the balance between bringing in the immigrant population needed with how much more people our province can actually handle? And we'll start with you, Mr. Houston.
Thank you so much. This is obviously a really important question. It's on the minds of Nova Scotians. The Nova Scotians are concerned about the growth. I am also concerned. This is why we've dialed back and really been strategic and really focused on the immigration portion of population growth. There are multiple parts of population growth. Some are just people who moved away but are moving home to Nova Scotia. Some are on immigration, but we've been really focused and strategic on the immigration file. It is only targeted at people in the skilled trades who can help us build those homes we're talking about, and people in healthcare that can help provide care to you. So it's very focused and very strategic. We hear the concerns of Nova Scotia. Scotians. We know that there are infrastructure needs. We're committed to making those investments. We've been working with municipalities on those as well. But another part of the population growth that I think is really important is around the asylum seekers. And when Prime Minister Trudeau wanted to send 6,000 asylum seekers to Nova Scotia, I said, listen, we are kind, compassionate people, but we can't do it. The NDP and the Liberals both said that we should accept those 6,000 asylum seekers. We just can't do it. I think this is really important because you can't talk about population growth without talking about all the various components of it. So on the immigration front, we hear you. We're very, very focused, very strategic, very targeted on skilled trades and healthcare workers. But on the asylum seeker thing, we have to be realistic and put the right message forward to Ottawa.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Houston. Ms. Chender, you're next.
Thanks. I appreciate the question. I want to start by saying that Nova Scotia is a province that's been built by immigrants, and Canada is a country that's been built by immigrants. And we have major pressures right now. We have a 1% vacancy rate in our housing market. We have totally unsustainable costs, and our schools are overcrowded. We know that. That is because of neglect. We need to build as we grow. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on the point that this is a failure of infrastructure. It's not a failure of people. We have underfunded our universities, so they bring in more students. We have underfunded our agricultural sector, so they bring in more temporary foreign workers. And then we blame them, the workers, the most vulnerable people, when we haven't built, you haven't built enough housing. You haven't addressed the healthcare problems we have. And it's unfair and it's scapegoating. And I think we need to acknowledge that for what it is. And I want to say one more thing. This government has been recruiting healthcare workers from refugee camps. So this whole idea that there is the right kind of person needs to be addressed. There are the right kind of people for the right kind of jobs in every corner of this world. And what it takes is a plan to address our needs here at home, to make sure that we are building the infrastructure that we need, we are building the schools that we need, and we are actually addressing affordable housing and not scapegoating people when we've failed to do those things.
Thank you, Ms. Chender. Mr. Churchill, it's your turn.
Pro-immigration policy to grow our population sustainably. Mr. Houston has been driving population growth for the revenue that it's given him, which he has spent lavishly all over the place without impacting your life in a positive way. He tells you that the people that he's nominating are all skilled trades and healthcare professionals. If you look at the documents in the immigration department, the majority of people that are being nominated are actually not from those professions, even close. Less than 14% are. So that is not true. You look at what he wants to spend money on, taking the tolls off the bridges at a time when we need to put that money into public works and growing our infrastructure. We do that, investing in more cell phone towers, investing in a new bridge in Halifax, investing in twinning our highways, and investing in new homes. The only platform that has a commitment to build 80,000 homes, which if we don't hit, we will see this housing crisis get worse. So yes, we do have a crisis right now. I would say the largest reason for that is because Mr. Houston has been driving this population growth, I think, for the revenue only. But we can invest in the right things, not taking tolls off bridges, but keeping that money actually in our road infrastructure, in our civic infrastructure, which we need if we're going to sustain that growth over the long run.
Ms. Chender, with the growth that we are seeing, traffic, especially in HRM, is becoming a major headache. What needs to be done to help people who find themselves spending more time stuck behind the wheel?
So you saw Mr. Houston particularly listless on the response from this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Ms. Chender starts talking about him scapegoating, she goes, I want to say one more thing. His faith, it fell.
Yeah.
Because he got called out. Then Churchill comes in and basically says, liar. You said you're only doing these two things. It only counts for 14%. That is not true. I guess on the camera sort of cuts away and you see Tim Houston's down. I guess, and then when he says, and you, Tim Houston, his head pops up when he hears his name.
Mm-hmm. Like a gopher, whack-a-mole.
It's like, he was beaten here.
So this is what I'm saying. It's like he delivered his lines. There wasn't much energy. He had standard stock responses that low information voters and people that vote on the team jersey will watch that debate and go, he did so great. But he still hasn't mentioned one thing he plans to do over the next 4 years. We're now at minute 57.
He's not going to.
And he's outright lied.
He's not going to name anything because, and here's the weird part: the provincial progressive Conservative Party of the province of Nova Scotia, and they are a progressive Conservative Party, is not connected to the Conservative Party of Canada. Yet, he's a puppet for Pierre Poilievre.
We have to stand up. So the 6,000 asylum seekers. I said, oh my God, no, we can't like this. I had to stand up to. Really? Really? All right. The last section I have, it's a two-part. I don't know if I should show all of it because we're getting a little long. I'll just show the second part. There's something called the Shenectady Isthmus. We've talked about it a few times on the show. It's that little strip of land that connects New Brunswick to Nova Scotia. That makes it such that Nova Scotia is not an island. People are worried about Nova Scotia becoming an island one day. So it seems that there are some funds. Pardon?
Timestamp?
Oh, sorry. 1/14/30.
Thank you.
So there is a plan to do something to mitigate, except usually with these types of things, the federal government comes with a portion and the province comes with a portion. But Nova Scotia, under the former Conservative leader, may not be the same under the current Liberal leader, and Nova Scotia, under the current Conservative leader, so both of them together decided to be unhelpful and said, no, we don't want to come with our half. This is a national infrastructure thing. This should be all yours, Ottawa. You should cover all the costs for this. So that's the impasse. Let's see how this got handled.
A government you lead handle protecting that stretch of land that connects us to the rest of Canada, the Shenectady Isthmus. Mr. Houston.
This is incredibly important. A trade corridor. It's absolutely, it's literally our connection to Canada. And it's at risk. So we believe that because of the national significance of this piece of land, the federal government should pay for it. I believe that very, very strongly. The federal government doesn't want to pay for it. They want to offer us half. And the NDP said we should just take the half and we should be happy. And the Liberals have said we should just take the half and we should be happy. Well, I don't think that's fair to Nova Scotians. If this was in Quebec, the federal government would be paying 100%, and I can assure you that every single elected member in Quebec would be standing up for Quebec. We can stand with Nova Scotians.
Is that we have a premier that's playing politics
the leader
with
of the Liberals. The leader of the Liberals wants to stand with the Liberal Party. The leader of the NDP wants to stand with the federal NDP. I am standing with Nova Scotians. But I want to assure Nova Scotia, in the meantime, we are not waiting for the money.
He's parroting the same line again.
Yeah, and Tim Houston's doing the thing.
There are shovels in the ground now.
Sorry?
And then Tim Houston's doing this thing he's done all night, which he's got nothing to say. He's made his point, but he's going to keep on talking to run out the clock so nobody can make a point against him.
Exactly.
A lot of work being done to make sure we protect those communities and protect our province.
This work
but I urge my colleagues on stage here to stand up to the federal government and say, pay your full share, you should pay it. Nova Scotians are worth it, they should do it.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Folks, this work could have started 3 years ago. But instead, we've got a premier that every single chance he gets would rather play politics than get work done for you. There's $325 million sitting on the table from the federal government for this project. There's money there. New Brunswick and Nova Scotia can pay 25% on that project. This is too important for our province, for our food insecurity, for our economy, for people's lives to play these sorts of games because it's more politically advantageous to the premier to attack Liberals than actually just get this job done. Mr. Houston talks about Quebec. Guess what? The infrastructure investments in Quebec are also shared by the provinces. So this is how these projects are funded, whether it's highways, whether it's our interprovincial ferries, or whether it's bridges.
Okay,
they are usually jointly funded, and he's playing politics instead of getting this work done.
I have 2 sisters at home and 3 kids, and I'll tell you something. I know when to pick a fight, and it's not all the time. And that's what we see from this premier over here. Tim wants to pick a fight with Ottawa all the time because he thinks it's a winning election strategy. And he's picking a fight instead of giving our province the safety, security, and knowledge it needs that we're not going to become an island. Tim says the work is already happening, but we hear differently on the ground. Tim says that we're not supporting the fight with Ottawa. That's not true. We have been asked on the record in a resolution whether or not we support pursuing Ottawa for 100% funding. I certainly do. But that shouldn't stop the work. Okay. We need to get it done. If we need to pursue the money afterwards, by all means. But grandstanding and fighting instead of doing the work that Nova Scotians need, particularly in the area around the border, to know that their homes and stores and lives won't be upended by a major storm is absolutely imperative.
Mr. Houston, a very quick rebuttal here.
Thank you. And listen, I will never apologize for standing up for you. Nova Scotia has a right to expect that they are treated fairly by the federal government. And this is not small change. This is over $400 to $500 million. That's a lot of money. It's Nova Scotians have a right to get the same treatment as the other parts of the country. I'm really pleased to hear the NDP say that they will now join us in calling on Ottawa to pay the full share. But I also want to assure Nova Scotians there is no waiting. The work is happening. The engineering started on day one when I came in. It's a massive, massive project. It's a multi-year project. The work is being started. I can't let it stand for 1 second that anyone would say we're not actually starting and we put Nova Scotia at risk.
Thank you for
never
that.
do that.
We're gonna move on here.
All right.
You've all made promises.
So that was Tim Houston. He's actually came, as the evening went on, he came across as a bit more of a dick.
Let's look at the Chignecto Isthmus here. You can see that on the screen right now. Rising sea level, but you do recognize how big this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going underwater anytime soon. Yes, we need to prepare, absolutely, but that's a pretty big chunk of land. I mean, It looks like the whole city of Moncton would easily fit in that space, right?
Right.
Here's Moncton and Dieppe. That whole area I'm circling would easily fit in that space. So,
but if you would assume like there's just one road crossing it to get from one end to the other.
Yes, and there is.
One bad storm washes out the road.
Yeah. No, I just build more infrastructure, but the isthmus isn't going to disappear. I mean, look at the bridge between PEI and Nova Scotia. It's not as big.
Yep.
So just build another road.
So yeah. So I don't. The last bit of it, there was a bit on it with coastal protection as well, which is pretty unique to Nova Scotia. So it was I liked listening to that bit because in an Ontario debate, you're never going to hear them talking about coastal erosion. So the different regions have different subjects, and that was the other one I would have presented to you if we had more time today. But like the last 2 answers we showed with Tim Houston, like both of them started with like some type of like he just looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world but there. There's no energy. Like even at the end as he's defending himself, it's like, no, I can't stand for it. It's like, really? Because it's like, no, I didn't do it. I'm fighting for you. Please, no, look at me. I'm trying so hard. I did not get the impression of a guy who, from the moment he wakes up until he goes down to bed, is first thinking about Nova Scotians. We can make their lives better. I didn't get that vibe from him at all. So, except the other leaders did themselves rather proud. I'm sure everybody scored points with their respective audiences.
But I don't think this would change any fortunes for Houston. But I would not be patting myself on the back and saying I won this and gave myself a stellar performance, because that was not the case. He really looks like he just wants to quit.
I have driven that road a number of times.
Sorry.
And I understand that it's marshland. It's not exactly ideal. And yes, it does need to be protected, but we can build more roads and we can build more rail. I mean, it's been done before. We don't need to be twisting in the wind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's still, like I said, it's important to build the mitigation that is required.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes,
because
no, agreed.
It's probably way less expensive to do mitigation than to build a whole new road or bridge.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed.
Yeah, Mr. Bisley, do we have a show?
I mean, there's still folks. Yes, we do. I was just going to say, there's still folks in Cape Breton Island who are still upset about the Canso Causeway because they don't feel like they're an island anymore.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. So you can't make everybody happy. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless, and you have the mouths from which we want the word to come. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. Now, if you don't want to miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl who has spawned that QR code that just appeared would bring you right there. Or you go to podpage.com/TrueNorthEagerBeaver, lowercase letter with a hyphen between each one of the words. And when you go there and click subscribe, we come directly to you when we have something fresh off the bandwidth. Now, if you'd like to help us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Lane and surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have 3 buttons for you. You like, share, and subscribe. If you click, we get all kinds of happy at our end, and everybody loves Happy Beaver, right? So go click them and
who doesn't
get us a little happy. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, then you might want to go to our tip jar that can be found at our coffee page. The coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. Scan that QR code that's appeared by Miss Grizzly's head there. And if you go there, our tip jar is waiting for you. So if you like the product that we are producing and would like to encourage us to do more, and would like to help us on doing the show and bringing it to you, leave us a couple of coins over there, please. Buy me a hot chocolate, buy Mr. Grizzly a cup of coffee, give us an attaboy, and that would mean the world to us so much. So thank you for your generosity. If you are not able to help financially, that is not a problem, because the gift of your participation is the one that matters most to us, and we love to hear from you. So please write to us at TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com, at our homes on Blay and Twitter, and on our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver. And if you happen to be listening on our YouTube channel, right down below, there's a comment section. Leave us a few comments. And if you're listening to us on podcasts, especially Apple Podcasts, please give us some stars and reviews. They all help us with the algorithm. It seems to be it's pretty important. So there you go. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs. If you are living in a Cloverdale Langley city, you've got a by-election coming up in December. But before that, on November 26th, is Election Day in Nova Scotia. 8 more days to go. Advanced polls and advanced voting is already available. So please look up on the Nova Scotia website where and when it is that you can vote. Plan your vote. Don't vote alone. Bring friends with you and tell everybody around you that you're voting, so to get them excited about too. And if there happens to be a candidate that you're excited about, why not volunteer to help them win? Stuff some envelopes, knock on some doors, make some phone calls. You never know. Or volunteer with campaign staff to help bring people to the polls on election day so that everybody can vote. There's many ways for you to get involved, so throw your body in the game. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your Eager Beaver saying, it could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs, so please be too gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, please tell us you have some words of wisdom for us.
Well, a little bit of wisdom, I guess, but more shameless self-promotion. If you
Oh,
look
yes.
up in the corner by my head, there's a QR code that will take you to an Audible link where you can purchase the book that I recently narrated. And I did put a link to it in the chat as well. If you click on that, it'll take you right there. I am paid on royalties only, so if the book doesn't sell, I don't earn any money for my efforts. So I'm eager to have people come out and purchase the book. It's a charming little novel, or novella, I should say. It's only about 2.5 hours of your time. And it talks about a father and son journey, baseball journey, and how the father coaches, the son is on the team, and the year they go through. So yeah, check it out if you could. I'd like that very much.
And what's the
Saucy,
title for?
leave it up to you. It's called Under the Lights: A Season of Growth, a father-son baseball journey.
Cool. Just for our listeners that are not watching live.
So my words of wisdom. Please help me out. So I can keep doing this show because I need money. This is my new line of work is basically narration is what I'm going to be doing. I'm trying to turn this into a full-time gig between narration and podcasting and voiceover work. If I can start doing some ads, that would be great. It's what I want to do. It's what I've wanted to do for a long time. I've got a jazz show coming up later today, and I'm getting back to work on my pop music show, along with a few other little things that I've got in the hopper. So yeah, there'll be more content coming your way soon. And I will have an ASMR show this evening for those of you who care to join in.
Fantastic news. And Kits and Cubs, if you have not checked out any of Mr. Grizzly's music shows, you're missing out. They're really good. They're really, really good.
Thank you.
I often, when he was doing them earlier and we were writing full shows, I would often write the shows to the music. So it's perfect. All right, Mr. Grizzly, I think it's time to cue the cock.
I believe it is. I'm just going to put a link here to my Mixcloud page for those of you who want to enjoy that. That's mostly pop, rock, emo, metal, popular music. It's the other show. The other show I have is a jazz show. Anyway, let's listen to a little bit different music right now, shall we?
Okay.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
All right, I see we're back. Do you have an Easter egg, Mr. Grizzly?
I did, but I think I've lost. Oh, no, there it is. Here it is. I've got it. This is from October 16th, but I thought it poignant, and it's just 2 minutes, and it's something that I think people need to be reminded thereof, because it's important that, just watch.
We have heard evidence through the Commission's proceedings that foreign interference affects or can affect all political parties. That's certainly true. In terms of providing information to political parties, what about there have been other ideas suggested of how classified information might be provided? For instance, if the leader is a privy councillor, would that entitle them to receiving such information?
There are privy councillors who were sworn in the 70s. As an example, Marco Mendicino was made a privy councillor when he became a minister. But now that he is no longer a minister, in order to appear before this commission and to deal with documents that he himself had generated and worked with as minister, he needed to get security cleared once again. there is a perception around this town that being a privy councillor allows for a higher degree of security clearance or access to documents than not being a privy councillor is. That's simply not true in concrete terms. Ministers have access to secure documents by dint of their roles of ministers and go through a vetting process that clears them for that before they are appointed ministers. But having been a minister years ago does not give you any inherent ability to see classified documents without re-upping or reinstating a security clearance.
Okay.
Just wanted to drive that home for those who keep telling me, oh, yes, clearance as a Privy Council member. No, not anymore. It's lapsed. It's lapsed. It's expired. It doesn't exist anymore. He has to go get it again. All righty.
Yeah. All right. One little bit of news for me. It's an Easter egg. It seems, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow, hopefully, that the federal government is going to compensate the Inuit and Nunavik for the mass sled dog slaughter that took place in the 60s.
Oh, that's good.
Yes,
That's good news.
some reparations, more reconciliation happening.
Oh, and just more tidbit, and then I'm out of here. Former MPP Randy Hillier for Kingston Frontenac.
Oh, yes.
His 9 charges have been stayed because the Ontario courts are too slow to act. So all the charges have been dropped because, well, you have a right to a speedy trial, and they've not done it in time. So thanks, Doug Ford.
Yep.
See ya.
Was it going to take